That's Nick.
And that's Joseph. And today we're here to talk about My New Friends, the 26th film directed by André Téchiné, which is set to premiere in the Panorama section of the Berlin International Film Festival on February 19th, 2024.
This director, their other films?
Téchiné, well, he works quite a bit with Catherine Deneuve, but he's a queer filmmaker. I highly recommend Wild Reeds. I think Being 17 from 2016 was a late career highlight from him, but yeah, he's a very notable film director.
What is this movie about? Lucy, a police officer, is fond of her new neighbors, a young couple. Soon she discovers that Jan, the father, has a heavy criminal record. Lucy's moral conflict is between her professionalism and her desire to help this family. That's an awkward premise. What's your pull quote?
Only fans of Isabelle Huppert will likely be interested in seeing her play a demure police forensic specialist who likes to jog.
Mine. Emotionally deficient and strangely miscast, My New Friends feels like a forgettable movie of the week.
So it's worth noting, I think, that Huppert has worked with Téchiné before, but it's been damn near, it's been over 40 years. It was 1979's The Bronte Sisters, where she played Anne Bronte. That was the last time they worked together. So I imagine that these two have spoken about working together again, and this is the project they did.
The premise says she's a police officer, but she's not. She says she's like an administrative assistant for social services. So she works adjacent to law enforcement.
Well, I think that's a lie, though, that she says to him, because she had kind of a mental breakdown. That's how we meet her, is her going back to work rather than...
Oh, so so maybe that is correct, that she was a police officer, but after her mental breakdown, she was transitioned to like desk work.
Yeah, like
okay, so I made a mistake. But so Isabelle Huppert plays Lucy, a police officer who went through something, and it seems like that something's related to her partner, husband, who committed suicide. And he was a cop, and it's not really explained, but we get the sense that his suicide may be partially due to his unhappiness with his work.
Yeah, stuff that, because his weapon was taken away, and she is angry because she said that is the incident that kind of set the
drove him over the edge or something. Okay, so in the background, we see like protests, like anti-police protests happening. As the premise said, she gets some new neighbors, a couple, a man and a woman, and their little kid. And she takes a liking to them. She discovers that the guy, Jan, this says he has a heavy criminal record. I think Isabel's miscast. I also think Jan is miscast because he seems like a little Weasley guy.
That's Nahuel Perez Biscayart, who's in quite a few things. You never saw BPM, which was kind of his breakthrough.
He looks like he would work as a barista like in Silver Lake.
I don't know. He looks like he could be the child of Vincent Cassel.
That too. But yeah, I didn't get like career criminal from him. He says that he's currently under house arrest.
But he's also an artist.
Yeah. He's currently under house arrest because he says that he was charged with shooting something at law enforcement at a protest. So that's why he's in trouble at this juncture. But anyway, everything sort of culminates in Isabelle getting in trouble for interacting with this known criminal who's anti-law enforcement. So while she awaits trial...
Well, because he has been stepping out of house arrest to still attend protests, albeit in disguise, but as Lucy explains to us, they have experts that are reviewing tapes every day, and they figure out who these people are. And one of his buddies gets nabbed by the cops, and the mother of the buddy drops off a bunch of weapons at his house, and he asks Lucy to help him, and she takes him in her car with those weapons and dumps them somewhere. So that is how she gets hemmed up with the police herself.
Yeah. So while she's waiting for her trial date, she's been told you cannot communicate, like see, talk to, or be around this family.
And we only know that because, and I think this is the laziest part of the script, is Lucy's narrating that for us.
Which the narration was odd because it wasn't there wasn't a clear delineation at times. So I'm like, oh, who's she talking to? Oh, to us. Okay.
Sure, but it's not established where that is supposed to take us, I think.
So in the end, we see that they've sort of moved on. Like Lucy's not really interacting with the family, and now she's working at a restaurant by the like a seaside cafe.
By the sea, by the beautiful sea.
And she's working with her nephew, and they're closing when this family shows up, not knowing that Isabel works there. And they sit down to eat.
And it's Jan, Julia, and their daughter Rose. And Julia is played notably by Hafsia Herzi, who's also going to be in another film with Isabelle Huppert this year, directed by Patricia Mesui.
And she doesn't speak to them because she's not supposed to, but the little girl is like playing by the water and sees Isabel through the window and waves at her. And we don't see Isabel wave back. The end.
Well, she smiles. I think there's acknowledgement.
Acknowledgement. I don't have any notes. I only had one note, which you already alluded to, and we need to talk about more, which is Isabel running. But
she runs a lot. They used to make, they make fun of like Tom Cruise and Julianne Moore running a lot in films.
I like Tom Cruise running though. But
or maybe that's just in The Forgotten with Julianne Moore.
Oh, sure.
She runs a lot in that movie.
So, of course, like, love Isabel. You're a huge Isabel fan. So, and that's why I agreed to watch this. I just think that it's odd casting. Maybe I am very familiar with her. I'm not used to seeing her in the modern era play sort of like a dowdy lady. So that already, like she doesn't have a wig on or her extensions in. Like she doesn't have a lot of, obvious makeup on. She's dressed frumpily. And
I think it's odd seeing her in a film where there's not something really weird, kinky, or perverse going on somewhere.
Maybe that's it. She's so notable in my mind that like seeing her playing this like regular schmegular person feels odd. But there are at least 8 scenes where we see her just running, and she's wearing the same outfit in all of them. This oversized gray hoodie, and she's wearing the hoodie over her head. And the way she runs is comical. Like, I don't know that anyone could watch that. Even if you don't know who this woman is, you would giggle because she looks insane.
Well, she has a very distinct walk.
And then she's breathing a certain way. We also see her jazzercise at a point. That looks crazy. I watched a number of Isabel films, and I don't know how to exactly put this, but I just think the world she's in seems odd. Like, she's married to this black man who killed himself, and she still interacts with his nephew.
And her brother-in-law.
And
who's also a cop.
She seems out of place with these people. I'm not implying that she doesn't want to be around black people, but it just feels odd, maybe because I'm not used to it. There's a scene where she cooks for her nephew.
She has adopted the cuisine of her husband's culture.
Which I believe is Caribbean. And
is he Caribbean?
Or is African?
I thought he was African.
Okay, sorry. Whatever she cooked for them, it was pretty elaborate, like some sea bass with some leeks and some blue cheese, and she made some pastries. But the way the boy's eating is like Isabel threw down. And she's just sitting there looking at him, like proud of her food.
Well, I think it's funny that they showcase that she won't eat.
It just all looks crazy to me. The way she slaps the second portion on the boy's plate, like she doesn't, because this lady doesn't look like, I'm laughing at her, but really that scene reminds me of my own mother. Like a very tiny, petite woman who loves to cook and doesn't eat. So I'm not saying it's not realistic. It just looks crazy. And so then there's Isabel seeming like a fish out of water in this movie. And then the story feels so...
It's just very it's superficial. There's a fine tradition of French films that deal specifically with social, realist, contemporary issues, specifically with the police, and you can usually tell when it's an older white person directing versus somebody younger that's not white.
It feels out of touch and not getting at the issue. I mean, because there's an obvious thing with like law enforcement, and then the fact that she was married to a black man, a very dark-skinned black man, and then has this nephew who's also a person of color, and there's no acknowledgement of like, could race have played a part in her dead husband's like situation? I don't know.
Well, there's a take it for granted that she's been absorbed into his culture, really, because she speaks to Jan about how Slimane used to talk about the ancestors in visiting him, and he, you know, has decided to join them. But if there's any kind of touching moments, I think it's when his ghost is really visiting her because she's speaking to him.
And then that's where the emotional deficit comes from, because I think those moments seem sweet. But like outside of that, she, you know, Isabel's also doing this thing in the film where it seemed, I'm used to seeing her be like, whenever the camera's on her, like she is the focus. So even like we just reviewed The Crime is Mine.
The Crime is Mine.
And Isabel is a supporting character, and I thought the movie was okay, but she's really the best part, and every time she's on screen, she pulls the focus in a good way. But in this film, there are several scenes where she's with another character, both are in frame, and Isabel, it's almost like she doesn't know what to do with her face, like she doesn't, like she's not used to being the center of attention.
Well, she's always been known for kind of having an expression that's inscrutable, so
which I like,
which you don't always know what's going on, and people love or hate maybe. But
I enjoy her on screen a lot, but in this film, I just don't think this was not a role for her. Combined with a weak story.
I think that I get the sense that there was an impression that they were going for that I don't know. Téchiné's in his 80s. If anything, it feels like he's recycling a lot of themes that he did with his last film with Catherine Deneuve, Farewell to the Night in 2019, where she plays this grandmother to a boy that's been radicalized. And then Ulaya Amamra is used in a very similar way to somebody like Hafsia Herzi here. And Herzi is, I think, a great actress and a director herself. I mean, Secret of the Grain by Kashish is must-see. But she seems vacant.
Yes, her facial, I mean, she really does look like she's medicated or something. She just, or upset that she's in the movie. I don't know. What's the movie I referenced about? It's also a French movie with the couple.
Oh, the Both Sides of the Blade.
Both Sides of the Blade.
The Claire Denis. Because there's the subplot with Vincent Lindon's biracial son.
Which, I mean, that probably is what sparked my recollection of the film, but really it was more the vibe of that film. This film, I don't like how it looks. It's too bright. It looks like it was made very cheaply, very quickly.
Apparently it was a 30-day shoot. Georges Lechetois is the cinematographer who works quite a bit with Alice Vinocourt and Rebecca Zlotowski. I love Planetarium, by the way. But yeah, it feels very bright. Everything feels bright and under a microscope, but in a way, but there's no movement under that microscope. Because the crux of the story is Lucy is being pulled to kind of go against her own values and integrity, and but she's already kind of transgressed that line anyway.
That's what I was gonna say. I mean, the main plot line is that like the conflict Lucy must have between being like working in law enforcement, but then witnessing how it like there are issues and struggling with that. And I feel like we should have focused more on that conflict, and then also learn more about her husband. I was more interested in that relationship than the neighbors.
Did you like her Slimane as a ghost figure wearing the Obama shirt? I thought that was an interesting touch. I don't like the English language translation. My New Friends. I keep thinking of Mickey Rourke and Barfly.
All of my friends.
All my friends. But the French title is Les gens d'à côté, which literally translates to people next door. And I think that vibe, because there's an even impersonal suggestion in The People Next Door.
I agree. I think that would be a more apt title. Because
it's propinquity, I think, that is drawing them together, because she's all alone. She says she's not alone. She talks to her dead husband and fiddles with plants all day. But clearly she is. So I think there's more. It's a short film. I think if we had another 15 minutes of some character development, this could have been a much better film than it is.
Also, her hobby of like working with plants, I didn't like how that was shot, because she's wearing like a lab coat and gloves, and the way it's shot, it looks like she's almost working in a lab. Like this is not something she's doing at home for leisure to clear her mind, or like just, yeah.
And, you know, I've seen a lot of her films. She's done law enforcement several times, and this is, you know, wildly different than something like Tip Top or Mama Weed even, where again her character is placed in a similar scenario where she's working alongside in conjunction with law enforcement, right, who's interpreting, because she speaks,
she's an interpreter.
yeah. And then decides that she is going to break the law herself.
And I enjoyed Mama Weed much more than this.
Well, yeah, but that's kind of a crowd-pleasing comedy, and
sure,
she has the chance to be glamorous even in unexpectedly in that role. And this is something that we don't get to see her do too much. But I want to say this probably transpired because it was the chance to work with this director again. What
else would you say about this movie?
That's about, I mean, I feel like you have a poor impression of him, but he really is a fantastic director. And especially in his a lot of his stuff from the 90s, I think is must-see.
I would watch those films. Mm-hmm. What would you give My New Friends?
I feel very similar as another film that she did called Sydney in Japan, which premiered in Venice, which is also kind of a ghost story. 2.5.
It's a no for me. I'm giving it 2 out of 5. Anything else?
No.
Join us on Patreon and listen to our podcast. Bye.